Some of the most well-known lessons taught within the red pill community focus on the importance of preserving one's frame and masculinity, working toward one's goals and refusing to take shit or accept subpar behavior from the women they are with. In this video, I want to connect all of this to spirituality, which is probably one of the most underappreciated aspects of the community and is frequently ignored as an axis of development. I want to show how these things are all connected. This will be a bit more meta, as it will touch on the context from which all of your actions and choices should be carried out. The focus here will not be on the content of the actual actions and choices, but rather on the context from which they should be carried out. We discuss the importance of having a direction and a goal in life, working toward those goals, making relationships with women more of a complement to one's life, rather than the primary focus of one's attention. Having the freedom to leave a situation at any time and being aware of and demonstrating one's higher value. These are all wonderful ideas, but if you try to separate them and work on them independently, you won't be able to put the pieces together to form the whole picture. Realizing that you don't actually need anyone or anything and that you never have in the past makes it possible to behave in such a way because it is the underlying reason that makes it instinctively possible. Your mentality will shift as a result of this profound understanding, moving away from follow the rules and fake it until you make it and toward it's actually the only rational and natural way to operate. The following are the Buddhist teachings referred to as the Four Noble Truths. The reality of suffering is that life itself is suffering, or, to be more precise, that life itself cannot be satisfactory. The truth about the root of all unhappiness is that it stems from three things: craving, desire, and attachment to outcomes. The truth about how to put an end to suffering is that it can be put to an end through renunciation and letting go of attachments. This is a description of the path to awakening. It is the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. Now, before you dismiss this as unimportant or not practical enough, allow me to emphasize how well this applies to not only the game, but also everything else in your life. I cannot overstate how well this applies. To practice the fundamental precepts that Buddhism has been teaching for millennia, it is not necessary to be awakened or to arrive at the realization that there is no self. Everything is subject to change at some point. That is one of the life lessons that you will learn from practicing Buddhism. You have most likely come across the phrase associated with the red pill, which reads, "She's not yours, it's just your turn." It is in every way the identical thing. Your entire life is a fleeting and ever-changing experience. The concept that there is a winner or loser in any situation is an illusion. This is very important. When you come to terms with that, you will have the freedom to eliminate anyone or anything from your life at any time. The problem is that we have a propensity to overly rigidify situations. We have a history of finding ourselves in favorable circumstances at some point in our lives, and we want this to serve as the foundation for our future success. It is only natural for us to try to cling to it when we feel like it is slipping out from under our feet. That is the mind's innate resistance to going with the flow of life. You will finally be free once you come to terms with the fact that neither you nor anything else in your life has a stable foundation, and that everything is subject to transformation at any time. How can you pursue a woman when you are aware that all you are doing is chasing an illusion of momentary pleasure? I'm not suggesting that you get rid of all the women in your life. I'm not trying to start a debate or anything. I'm just pointing out that it shouldn't matter if she is or isn't here. Even if she is a 10 and you have spent a significant amount of time and emotional investment in her, the problem lies more in having a mentality in which one is happy if they obtain what they want and unhappy if they do not. The objective is merely a point of reference. The fun comes from participating in the game itself. Achieving complete independence requires detachment from the results of the game. Your sense of self is a fiction. I have already talked about the experience of having no self. To put this into perspective for you, Buddhism encourages you to discover for yourself that the concept of I is an illusion. There is no such thing as the ego. There is no boundary between what you think of as you and the rest of the universe. You are one with everything else. If you have never explored the realm of spirituality, then hearing something like that may strike you as profound or strange. Once you have this understanding and have realized it on a profound level, it is impossible for any woman or anyone else to hurt your ego. How can a Shiist be successful if it's aimed at something that doesn't exist? She is putting the image that she has constructed in her head of you to the test. She has constructed an image of you as some object that possesses a certain number of characteristics, and now she will examine one of those characteristics. You will react from her perspective if you let her challenge that attribute and take it personally. The power is yours to wield if you observe a concept attacking another concept and at the same time completely detach yourself from the situation. People often give responses that are emotionally charged, which is one of the reasons they do poorly on shortest. She wronged me, so I have no choice but to take the offensive or risk hurting her again. Everything that is being taught by the game is just a byproduct of the idea that there is no self. The only difference is that it is being taught at a specific time in a specific context as a drilled reaction that will eventually become instinctive with enough practice. When you nag a woman, you are usually trying to get an emotional response out of her by hurting her ego on purpose in a lighthearted manner. This is done with the intention of getting a rise out of her. When she shit tests you, she's essentially conducting the same experiment, but with the goal of reducing the value you hold in her eyes, or actually giving you a chance to prove you really are high value. Emotion and ego serve as the organizing principles here. When viewed from a distance, it's pretty funny to look at in retrospect. You ever nag your feelings or your thoughts that keep coming back to your feelings? The only way you could behave in the manner of an AFC is if you believe that you have something to gain from a woman, but that she is not giving it to you in return. You are not your emotions. You are not the same thing as your thoughts. You need to get to a point where you can mentally snap yourself out of any negative mental space you find yourself in. Absolute illumination, when you do not identify with your mind, it is impossible for another person to control your mind or manipulate you in any way. It will simply fail. Therefore, there is nothing for you to gain and there is nothing for you to lose. You are not reliant on anyone else. Even the concept of who you are, as well as your reputation and what other people believe about you, are all nothing more than illusions. In that regard, life is nothing more than a game. The game contains another game within itself. That's the extent of it. You have the option of learning the rules from the bottom up or gaining an understanding of the scope of the entire game and getting the top to bottom picture. You still need to get familiar with the actual practical rules, though. There is no leverage if there is no attachment to the situation. This holds true for every aspect of one's life. You need to keep this frame of mind in the back of your head whenever someone else believes they have power over you because they can give you something you don't already have. Because you are hardwired to chase after material possessions or positive feelings, you will view as valuable right now anything that they can give you, regardless of its intrinsic worth. Remove yourself from their influence. You hold all of the power in any given circumstance of your life if you possess the ability to walk away and truly mean it. When you step outside of yourself and have a profound understanding of your inner workings as well as the transience of things, and only then will you be able to execute this in a manner that is consistent. You still need to have an understanding of the rules of the game, which is why the sidebar is there in the first place. This will not educate you on the nature of women. However, the purpose of this is to provide you with a holistic and a logical perspective on life. You might have been married for 15 years before you decided to divorce your spouse. No attachment. Every emotion you experience can be reduced to a particular flavor of pleasant vibrations. It does not imply that you should dull your senses as a result. This does not imply that you should shut down your emotional life as a result of what has been discussed here. You are able to ride the wave when it comes, and you should do so. It makes up the majority of the excitement of the game. This is all to say that when the wave finally recedes, even if it only lasts a fraction of a second, you should just accept it and move on to the next thing. Your ability to accept circumstances for what they are will make life a lot simpler for you, regardless of whether or not the circumstances improve. You got the girl, for example. She threw a hissy fit, and you've had to walk away. You can ride emotion in the same way that you can easily detach yourself from being affected by it. It comes in very handy during shit tests, as well as any other situation in which she is attempting to elicit a negative emotion from you. After taking some time to pause, regain your composure, step back, and reframe the problem as a game, you could then move forward. If you are reading this and watching this video, I strongly suggest that you begin to meditate, study the concept of non-duality, study spirituality, and make a gradual shift in your perspective. You will know your place in the universe, whereas she will never know hers because she chases after you, she bases her definition of herself on you, and you become the standard by which she compares herself to the other women in her circle of friends. Because it operates on an existential level, it gives you the most significant advantage you could possibly have. After some time spent practicing, the rest will fall into place.